Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, my name is Ore. I'm a pharmacist and I'm based in Canada. Thank you so much for tuning in today. I'm really challenging myself to be a bit more consistent with YouTube. If you follow me on Instagram or TikTok, you know that I'm a bit more consistent on Instagram than I am on TikTok, but one of the things I'm focusing on this year is consistency with as many of my platforms as possible. So if you are new, or even if you're not new but you didn't know that I have an Instagram page, I'm Ore Superstar on Instagram, TikTok, and obviously YouTube and Twitter. That's another area I need to get consistent with. Please head over to those platforms and follow me. Now, today I wanted to talk a little bit about residency. As someone who practiced in the UK and got their education from the UK, residency is something that is a North American terminology. I say North American because it's used, I think the term residency is used interchangeably in different parts of the world. One of the biggest challenges that I have realized lots of different pharmacists encounter when they come to a country like Canada or even North America is this residency terminology. When I left the UK, my plan was not to actually go back into hospital pharmacy. I felt like I had done so many different things in hospital pharmacy. At the time that I left the UK, I was a contract pharmacist. So I was a locum pharmacist in hospitals. So I would go and work at a hospital for 3 months and then I'll go to another hospital for 6 months. I think the longest hospital I was ever at as a locum was about 8 to 9 months. And I would do that contract job for some time and then just go off and do something else. And I really liked that because it gave me flexibility. It allowed me to choose where I wanted to work. It also allowed me to just learn different things and be in different environments, see different policies, how different people were working. Prior to being a locum hospital pharmacist, I was actually working for a private company that was basically contracting their services to the NHS and helping GP surgeries and CCGs, they were called CCGs at the time, I know the name has changed now, helping them to improve their services, improve their medication policies and things like that. I had left kind of conventional NHS, and I think I left the NHS as a full-time permanent staff of the NHS in 2017. So as of 2017, I was no longer a permanent staff in the NHS. I had already moved out of that and started doing a lot more private work and then moved into locum contract work. So coming to Canada, I was like, I definitely don't want to go back into the rigid hospital pharmacy lifestyle. You know, I didn't want to do on calls. I think I've said this many times on this channel. I didn't want to do on calls. I didn't want to do kind of evenings and late nights. I wanted something that kind of suited my lifestyle and would allow me to basically just work around the other things that I had, you know, my family, my business, my other ventures that I was going to go on. So I knew that coming to Canada, I didn't want to go into hospital. However, ended up, as you guys know, if you've been subscribed to my channel for a while, you know my stories of retail pharmacy in Canada and what that's like. If you follow me on Instagram, you also know the different kind of experiences I've had as a retail pharmacist in Canada. After my first year and a bit in Canada, I was like, you know what? I actually want to go back to hospital. I want to go back to hospital in Canada and see what the practice is like here in comparison to the UK. I want to experience it and see what different things there are out there. You know, for the first few months, I really struggled. I really struggled to get anyone to look at my application. I really struggled to get any interviews, struggled to get that attention I needed from a hospital pharmacy employer. And the main reason, and the reason that came back a lot, was because I did not have any Canadian residency experience. Canada, just similar to the US, when you finish pharmacy school, there is an expectation that if you want to go into hospital pharmacy, you have to do a residency, which usually is about a year, 2 years for most people. Now, for me, you know, in the UK, we don't use the term residency, do we? We don't, it's not used in pharmacy especially, right? I mean, some people do actually, because I remember when I was applying for roles, there were some terms on the NHS jobs website that said resident pharmacist or pharmacy residency, whatever. But I've never used that term before, and it wasn't a term that I was familiar with in terms of just like my experience, my pharmacy experience coming from the UK. So I really struggled. Over time, I feel like I got to a point where I was getting really discouraged, because even like I was applying for any kind of role at this point. I was applying for casual roles, I was applying for part-time roles, and I'll talk a bit more about casual versus full-time, permanent, all that kind of stuff, because it's very sticky here. You know how in the NHS we have, when you apply for a job, it's like a band 6, permanent, full-time, you have so-and-so vacation, you have this amount of benefits or whatever it may be. It's not like that in Canada. So, well, okay, let me pause. It's not like that in Ontario. So it's very different, and I'll talk a bit more about that in my following video. So what I ended up doing was actually reaching out to one of the people who said no to me. So I had applied for a job, I had an interview, and I spoke to this lady. She was really, really nice. We had a really great conversation, and she was like, you know what, I really want to employ you because you have a UK experience and blah, 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 all this stuff. But I had no Canadian hospital experience, neither did I have a Canadian residency. And she actually said no, and she didn't give me the job, even though she really liked me. And I asked her why. And I think that's something that we should do more often. If you are in a position where you don't get a job that you've applied for, especially if you're someone who has been applying for jobs back to back and just getting lots of no's, one of the things that you must learn to do is ask why. And not everybody is going to give you the feedback, because I have had this poll that I done on my Instagram where I asked people who are in recruitment to basically share the reasons why they don't give feedback. Not everyone's going to give feedback, but there will be that one person at least that will be kind enough to tell you why. And I remember going back to maybe my 3rd or 4th year as a pharmacist in the UK, when I didn't get a particular job that I wanted. I actually said to the lady, why didn't you give me the job? And she told me all these different things that I didn't have in my resume, and these different things basically were important to them as an organization. I ended up taking points down from that phone call I had with her, and I inserted all those things. I looked at my experience, looked at how I could link them up, and literally the next application I got an interview. Not the same hospital, the same position. It was a completely different organization, different position, and I got an interview. Sometimes asking for feedback goes a very, very long way. So I asked this woman why, and she gave me the reasons, and the main and most important reason was, we don't have time to train you, and we need to know that you have done a residency in Canada. Here are some of the things that I done to get myself a hospital pharmacist position in Canada. Number 1, this lady that I spoke to and who gave me feedback ended up telling me that residency was a big thing, right? It was very important to them that hospital pharmacists have residency. Now, not every single hospital is going to ask for that, but to be fair, 90 to 95% of them are going to want you to have a residency. In the UK, we have what we call the junior pharmacist training. So when you leave your pre-registration year, so you finish pharmacy school in England after 4 years, then you go on to do a pre-reg, which is a 1-year training. You can do that in hospital, or you can do that in community. If you do that in hospital, great. You're likely going to get a hospital pharmacy position. If you do it in community, like I did, it's very, very, very... back in the day, okay, I'm talking 2013, 2014, it was really hard to get into hospital pharmacy as a community pharmacist, because again, you just didn't have the hospital training. When you're applying for a hospital pharmacy position as a new hospital pharmacist or a new grad, you apply to junior pharmacist, band 6 rotational clinical pharmacist role. That's the job that is basically for people who are new out of pre-registration year, or people who are new pharmacists in hospital. If you think about it, the junior pharmacist rotational clinical pharmacist year, that band 6, band 7 year, is a training year, right? You're doing different rotations, and you're doing, like for me, I done cardio, I done elderly care, I done renal, what else I do? I did gastro, I spent a lot of time in mental health. Did I do mental health? No, I didn't do mental health in my rotation. My apologies. I did admissions. I spent so long in admissions. Oh my God, I hated admissions so much. I don't know about you, but one of the worst rotations for me was admissions. I just hated admissions because it was just everything. You had to know everything. And then when I moved up a bit, so I think a few months towards the end of my band 6 year, I started doing these rotations in admissions, but with the consultant. So the consultant would be going around, to see patients, and you would have your little book, and the doctor would look at you and say, oh, what's the dose of that of amiodarone we want to give this patient? And I'll be like, it can be such a tough rotation, because you have to know everything. Because think about it, people are coming in with so many different conditions. the doctors are asking you what doses for this, you know, the nurses are telling you I need to mix this IV, like there's just so much. So admissions was probably one of the worst. I hated it. Elderly care was boring. It was boring because they all had the same thing. What is that thing called in England? In Canada, we call it PEG or Laxido, but it's called Laxido in England. Oh my God, I miss Laxido. The orange oh my God. Like, just little things like that I really miss. Anyways, so the rotational band 6 clinical pharmacist year is basically just a year of training, and it's similar to a residency, right? You're doing presentations, you're doing your diploma. So you're, you know, for me, we had to enroll in a postgraduate clinical diploma at a university. Mine was Medway School of Pharmacy. I was doing mine at. So you do your clinical diploma, then you move on and you do a certificate, then you do the diploma, and then now obviously I know they're attaching it to the prescribing course. So what I done was I actually, in my Canadian resume, because again, you cannot use the same resume from England in Canada. You have to switch it up. My British resume, or CV, curriculum vitae, is not the same as my Canadian resume. They're very different. The way that the templates look are so different. And that's one of the things I learned when I moved to Canada. I can't use a UK resume or CV here in Canada. It's just, they just accept different formats, and there's just different ways that it should be done. Maybe I'll do a video on that another time, and I'll show you guys a bit of the differences and what that looks like. I ended up tailoring my Canadian resume to reflect the fact that I have had a residency actually in the UK. We just call it a junior pharmacist clinical rotation position, essentially, right? I ended up just picking out the different things that I'd done in my clinical rotation or my residency and placing that in my resume, and you know, allowing employers to basically see that I have that experience. I was so blessed to get a position, my first hospital pharmacy position, at one of the best hospitals I've worked at. I worked with some of the best people that I've worked with in my career. I had the best line manager, I had some of the best team members, and it was just amazing. I was really lucky to be interviewed by a group of individuals who, I think they were open-minded, and that's what really worked for me, along with the favor of God. I had been applying for different roles here and there. I even applied for a position, and it was a part-time or casual position. And I was like, am I going to drop my full-time retail hours for this casual position just because I want to get into hospital? I really just wanted to get the hospital experience. But within like a few weeks, I had, you know, at the point that I sent my resume, you know, in for this new mental health hospital in downtown Toronto. And I was like, I've heard this is such a hard place to get a position, but I really, really wanted, and I was eager to show myself and prove myself. And luckily for me, I interviewed with such a great team. My line manager was amazing, and I think she was open-minded. Picking the experiences that you've had. If you've had a rotation in your country, you know, wherever you're coming from, or you've had some form of junior training, link that up. How does that match with the role they're asking you for? How does it relate or link to what is done in a Canadian residency? Look at the program and the outline for some of these hospital residencies in Canada or in America, and look back at your career and see the things that you've done that maybe are similar to those, and that kind of helps you to tick that off the box. Number 2, network. I'm so big on networking. I'm always talking about networking. It's so important. You just never know when those connections are going to come in handy. Network. Speak to people. Find out who the managers are at the hospitals you want to work for. Speak to, you know, the chiefs. They don't call them chief pharmacists here, they call them directors. So speak to the director, speak to the pharmacy manager, you know, ask if you can come in just to, you know, shadow or see how the systems are like, you know, those kind of things. Very, very important. Number 3, do not give up. Keep applying. You have to keep applying. It definitely will happen. My first, in the UK, when I applied for hospital pharmacy positions, I think I done about 40 to 45 applications before I actually got an interview. And that was a lot. Oh my God, it took so much out of me. But over time, I came to learn and understand that it was just persistence and just keep going. Really, really hope you found this video helpful. And I really, really, really hope that if you are in a position where you're looking for a specific type of job, residency, whatever it may be, it will come. Just keep going and don't give up. I hope that you love this video. If you do, please let me know in the comment section. Let me know what kind of tactics you're using to get yourself that position that you really eagerly want. Make sure you like the video, subscribe, share, tell your friends and family about it, and I'll see you in the next video.